Most people spend their entire lives chasing happiness as if it were a prize waiting at the finish line. They treat joy like a trophy earned only when everything finally goes right. Yet, Viktor Frankl, one of the deepest thinkers of the modern age, warned that the more we chase happiness directly, the more it slips through our fingers. Happiness is not something we pursue, it is something that emerges as a byproduct of living a life with meaning. When people obsess over instant pleasure, they often end up empty, anxious, and disconnected from themselves. This happens because they confuse feeling good with living well. Frankl reminds us that a meaningful life may not always feel happy in the moment, but it offers something far more powerful: direction, purpose, and inner stability. Today, many people try to fill the void within them by accumulating small doses of pleasure. They scroll endlessly, purchase things they do not need, chase external validation, or escape into distractions. These behaviors create a pattern Frankl called the existential vacuum, a state where a person feels a quiet but heavy sense of emptiness. The tragedy is that society encourages this pattern. We are taught to pursue the next dopamine hit instead of asking deeper questions about who we are and what truly matters. But just like someone drinking salt water to quench thirst, the more we try to feel happy through quick fixes, the more dehydrated our soul becomes. Consider the metaphor of sunlight. You cannot grab sunlight with your hands. The harder you try to grasp it, the more you fail. But if you open a window, light enters naturally. Happiness works the same way. You do not chase it, you create conditions for it to arise. These conditions include having meaningful goals, taking responsibility, contributing to something bigger than yourself, and facing life's challenges with courage. When you shift your focus from "how can I feel happy right now" to "what is the meaningful thing to do in this moment," you unlock a deeper sense of fulfillment that no instant pleasure can replicate. A powerful exercise derived from Frankl's teachings involves asking yourself 3 questions daily. What task today requires my responsibility? Who can benefit from my actions? What meaningful step can I take, even if it's uncomfortable? These questions redirect your attention away from momentary emotions and toward purposeful living. They help you build internal strength that does not depend on external circumstances. Real happiness grows quietly behind the scenes of meaningful effort. It shows up after you've done the right thing, not before. And understanding this truth opens the door to a new kind of life, one where fulfillment is earned through commitment rather than chased through impulses. The obsession with instant happiness is not just a personal issue, it is a cultural phenomenon. Modern society glorifies immediate gratification because it is easy to sell and easy to package. Apps reward you with constant notifications. Entertainment platforms are designed to keep you hooked, and marketing convinces you that buying one more thing will bring joy. This environment trains the brain to value quick bursts of pleasure over long-term meaning. Viktor Frankl believed that when people no longer have a clear why in life, they become vulnerable to any distraction that promises relief. Without direction, the mind seeks comfort. Without purpose, the heart seeks escape. This cycle becomes dangerous because pleasure loses its intensity over time. What once felt exciting becomes normal, then insufficient, and finally, empty. People find themselves increasing the dose, more entertainment, more stimulation, more consumption, trying to recreate a feeling that no longer comes. Frankl often emphasized that meaning comes from 3 sources: purposeful work, love and relationships, and the courage to face challenges. These are not instant. They require commitment. They demand effort, but they reward you with something no shortcut can match: a life you respect. When you stop demanding happiness and start demanding meaning from yourself, you transform your entire existence. You stop being controlled by impulses and start becoming guided by purpose. And in that shift, happiness begins to reappear quietly and naturally as a companion rather than a goal. Many people believe happiness comes from eliminating discomfort, but Viktor Frankl argued the opposite. He believed that discomfort, struggle, and responsibility are essential ingredients for a meaningful life. The attempt to avoid discomfort at all costs is one of the main reasons people feel empty. When life becomes too easy, too passive, too comfortable, the human spirit loses its sense of direction. Just like a muscle that atrophies without resistance, the soul weakens when it has nothing to strive for. The mistake most people make is assuming that a meaningful life should always feel pleasant, but meaning often requires sacrifice, patience, and resilience. Think about climbing a mountain. The air becomes thinner, your legs burn, and the trail gets steep. But with every difficult step, the view becomes more breathtaking. If someone were to put you at the top instantly, the scenery might still be beautiful, but it would lack the emotional depth that comes from overcoming the struggle. The journey is what shapes the experience. Meaning grows through challenge. Happiness grows through meaning. One empowering exercise to counter the obsession with easy happiness is purposeful discomfort. Choose one action daily that is slightly difficult but aligned with your values. It could be waking up early to work on a goal, having an uncomfortable but necessary conversation, resisting a distraction, or doing a task you usually avoid. These small acts of responsibility create internal order. They teach your mind that fulfillment is earned, not consumed. Frankl believed that humans need a why strong enough to endure anyhow. Without a purpose, the challenges of life feel unbearable. With purpose, those same challenges feel transformative. To create a strong why, identify what matters most to you. Write down the people, principles, and goals you would willingly sacrifice for. This list becomes your compass. Whenever the temptation for quick happiness appears, revisit it and remind yourself of your deeper direction. Another principle Frankl emphasized is self-transcendence, the idea that we find meaning not by focusing on ourselves, but by contributing to something beyond ourselves. This could be helping others, creating valuable work, or leaving a positive influence on your environment. When your life becomes about more than your own comfort, the emptiness begins to fade. A person who dedicates part of their life to serving others discovers a form of fulfillment far deeper than pleasure. Meaning does not eliminate suffering, but it transforms it. When you suffer for something meaningful, the pain becomes purposeful. It becomes a path to growth instead of a source of despair. When people stop seeking constant happiness and begin embracing meaningful responsibility, they unlock a more stable, more mature, and more rewarding form of fulfillment that no instant pleasure could ever match.
One of the greatest illusions of modern life is the belief that happiness comes from freedom without limits. Many people think the key to feeling good is removing responsibilities, avoiding pressure, and doing whatever they want. But Viktor Frankl taught that true inner freedom emerges from choosing the right responsibilities, not escaping them. A life without responsibility becomes chaotic, directionless, and shallow. When everything is optional, nothing feels meaningful. Paradoxically, it is commitment that gives life its weight, its structure, and its emotional richness. Without something to dedicate yourself to, you wander without purpose, drifting from one temporary pleasure to another while feeling increasingly unfulfilled. Consider a ship on open waters. If it has no captain, no map, and no destination, it does not experience freedom. It experiences danger and uncertainty. Waves push it anywhere, storms threaten it, and the vastness of the ocean becomes overwhelming. But once that ship has a captain, a course, and a purpose, the same ocean becomes an adventure. Responsibility is the captain of the mind. It provides direction when emotions shift and when circumstances change. Frankl believed that responsibility was the answer to the existential vacuum because it anchors a person to something meaningful. A practical way to introduce meaningful responsibility into your life is through intentional commitments. These are promises you make to yourself or to others that reflect your deepest values. Think of commitments like becoming a better parent, building a project, strengthening your health, or improving your community. These are not obligations forced upon you. They are voluntary responsibilities that shape who you become. Each time you honor a commitment, you strengthen your identity and your sense of purpose. Another key insight is that responsibility turns suffering into significance. Frankl observed this during his time in concentration camps, where he saw that people who had a personal mission, someone to return to, a dream unfinished, or a duty to fulfill, were psychologically stronger. They endured the same pain, but their pain had meaning attached to it. Responsibility gives you a reason to persevere. It transforms challenges from something that breaks you into something that builds you. Think of purpose like planting a seed. The soil must be dug, the roots must face darkness, and the plant must push through obstacles to grow. The discomfort is necessary for the transformation. The same is true for human beings. When you voluntarily take on a meaningful responsibility, you invite growth. You create a narrative for your life that is deeper than convenience or pleasure. You begin to understand that fulfillment comes not from asking life to be easier, but from becoming someone capable of handling its demands. The pursuit of happiness becomes far less important when your life is guided by responsibility. Instead of asking how to feel good, you begin asking how to live truthfully. And in that shift, meaning emerges naturally as the foundation of your daily existence, shaping your identity with integrity and intention.
A major reason people feel lost today is the overwhelming number of choices available to them. While choice seems liberating on the surface, excessive choice often leads to paralysis, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. Viktor Frankl believed that human beings do not thrive when flooded with endless options. Instead, they thrive when guided by values that help eliminate pointless choices. Without a clear hierarchy of values, every decision feels heavier, every path feels uncertain, and every outcome feels questionable. The mind becomes trapped in constant comparison, always wondering whether a better option exists. Happiness becomes impossible because satisfaction requires commitment, and commitment cannot form when the mind is overwhelmed with alternatives. Imagine walking into a store with 100 different types of bread. Even if you pick a good one, part of you wonders whether another might have been better. This is not freedom, this is cognitive noise. Real freedom comes from knowing what matters to you so deeply that many choices become irrelevant. When you know your values, you do not chase trends. You do not follow the crowd. You do not switch directions every time something feels difficult. You act with clarity and consistency, and this predictability creates inner peace. To build this clarity, Frankl encouraged the practice of meaning-oriented decision-making. This method involves asking one simple question before any major choice. Which option aligns most strongly with the person I want to become? This question cuts through emotional impulses and reveals deeper truth. It transforms decisions from emotional reactions into expressions of identity. When you start making choices aligned with meaning rather than pleasure, your life gains coherence. You stop feeling fragmented. You stop feeling like different versions of yourself depending on the day or mood. Another exercise is reducing unnecessary choices. Many successful people eliminate decisions about things that do not define their lives, such as daily outfits, morning routines, or unimportant tasks, so they can focus energy on what truly matters. This principle applies to emotional choices too. You do not need to decide every day whether you feel motivated to pursue your goals. You simply pursue them because they align with your values. By reducing trivial choices, you free mental space for meaningful ones. Excessive choice also affects relationships, careers, and personal growth. People often feel restless, thinking something better might be just around the corner. But this mindset prevents deep connection, mastery, and fulfillment. Meaning requires depth, and depth requires commitment. When you stop searching for perfect options and start investing in purposeful ones, everything becomes more stable and rewarding. A meaningful life is not created by constantly searching for the best choice. It is formed by firmly choosing what aligns with your purpose and fully living that choice. This consistency brings emotional grounding, clarity, and the deep satisfaction that no amount of endless options can ever provide.
Modern culture often treats happiness as a destination, but Viktor Frankl saw it as a side effect of living with integrity and meaning. One of the most powerful ideas he introduced is that humans are not driven by the pursuit of pleasure alone. They are driven by the pursuit of significance. When people lack meaning, they try to fill the void with entertainment, comfort, or stimulation. But the void grows because it is not meant to be filled with pleasure, it is meant to be filled with purpose. The more a person avoids meaning, the more anxious and dissatisfied they become. The human spirit requires direction, and without it, psychological fragmentation occurs. A major contributor to modern emptiness is emotional dependence. People depend on dopamine, approval, and distraction to regulate their emotions. They treat their internal world as something that must always feel pleasant. But Frankl taught that emotional stability comes from self-discipline, not indulgence. When you learn to endure discomfort, regulate your impulses, and prioritize your values, you become emotionally independent. This independence is essential for meaning because it prevents external circumstances from controlling your inner life. One technique to develop emotional independence is practicing value-based resilience. Whenever you face stress, ask yourself, what value can I express in this moment? For example, when frustrated, express patience. When afraid, express courage. When tired, express discipline. This strategy transforms emotions from obstacles into opportunities for character building. It shifts attention from how do I feel to who do I want to be right now. Feelings become less dominant, and meaning becomes the guiding force. Another important principle is the acceptance of suffering as part of growth. Frankl believed that suffering without meaning destroys, but suffering with meaning elevates. When you choose a purpose worth struggling for, raising a family, building a career, serving others, or developing personal mastery, your relationship with difficulty changes. It becomes a necessary part of the story rather than a barrier to happiness. You become stronger, wiser, and more self-respecting. A powerful metaphor is the forging of steel. Raw metal is not strong until it undergoes intense heat and pressure. Only through this process does it transform into something durable. Human beings are the same. Comfort may feel good, but it does not make you stronger. Meaning does. Responsibility does. Courage does. When you willingly face challenges aligned with your purpose, you forge inner strength. Frankl insisted that life is constantly asking you a question. What will you do with your freedom to choose? Every moment presents an opportunity to choose meaning over distraction, growth over comfort, and purpose over pleasure. By answering this question with honesty and integrity, you create a life not defined by the pursuit of happiness, but by the expression of your deepest values. And from this foundation, true fulfillment quietly emerges. One of Viktor Frankl's most transformative teachings is the idea that meaning is not discovered in ideal circumstances, but created through conscious choice. Many people delay living meaningfully because they are waiting for perfect conditions. They wait to feel motivated, wait to feel confident, wait for life to become easier. But this waiting creates stagnation and emptiness. Meaning begins the moment you take responsibility for your attitude, regardless of circumstances. Frankl emphasized that the last and greatest human freedom is the ability to choose one's attitude in any situation. When people recognize this power, they stop being victims of circumstance and become authors of their inner world. Think of life as a canvas. Some people receive bright colors. Others receive darker ones. But the meaning of the painting does not depend on the colors you were given, it depends on the way you choose to paint with them. A person who uses limited tools with creativity and courage creates a masterpiece. Another, who has every advantage but no intention, creates nothing meaningful. Meaning is shaped by the way you respond to life, not the conditions life gives you. A powerful exercise to cultivate this mindset is the practice of daily reframing. At the end of each day, write down one difficult moment and describe how it became an opportunity for growth. For example, frustration becomes patience, loss becomes gratitude, failure becomes humility, and adversity becomes resilience. This practice trains your mind to extract meaning from experiences that would otherwise feel pointless. Another essential concept is the importance of self-transcendent goals. These are goals that require you to become bigger than your fears, your habits, and your limitations. They pull you forward rather than push you from behind. Examples include raising your children with integrity, completing a life-changing project, contributing to your community, or mastering a craft that inspires others. These goals give you direction, and with direction, your daily actions become infused with significance. Frankl also believed that meaning is dynamic. It changes throughout life. What is meaningful at 20 may not be meaningful at 40. What drives you in difficult seasons may differ from what drives you in times of abundance. This is why reflecting on your purpose regularly is essential. Ask yourself, what is life expecting from me right now? What responsibility is calling my name today? Meaning shifts with context, but the attitude you bring to it remains your personal choice. The search for happiness becomes unnecessary when your life is oriented toward meaning. You stop chasing temporary emotions and begin building a purposeful existence grounded in action, responsibility, and personal values. Instead of asking life to make you happy, you begin asking what meaningful contribution you can make to the world around you. In this mindset, fulfillment naturally arises, not as a momentary feeling, but as a stable and lasting way of being. One of the most misunderstood ideas in modern culture is the assumption that a meaningful life must always feel inspiring or profound. Viktor Frankl argued the opposite. He believed that meaning is often found in ordinary moments, small responsibilities, and quiet acts of integrity. People search for grand missions and dramatic purpose while overlooking the simple opportunities for meaning that appear every day. The truth is that purpose grows in the soil of daily discipline, not in the rare flashes of inspiration. A person who commits to doing the right thing consistently builds a meaningful life brick by brick. Consider a gardener tending to a small patch of land. Each day, the work may feel ordinary, watering plants, removing weeds, nourishing the soil. But over time, this consistency turns a small patch into a flourishing garden. The transformation may not feel dramatic in the moment, but the results are profound. Life works the same way. Meaning grows in the quiet tasks repeated with intention. Showing up for work with integrity, caring for loved ones, learning something new, taking small steps toward your goals. These are the acts that shape a purposeful life. A helpful exercise is identifying your daily anchors. These are 3 small actions that ground you in meaning each day. For example, reading for personal growth, expressing gratitude to someone, or completing one value-driven task. These actions may seem small, but they accumulate into a powerful sense of identity. The consistency of these anchors helps you stay connected to your purpose, even on days when external circumstances feel chaotic. Frankl emphasized that meaning is relational as much as personal. It is found in how we treat others, how we respond to challenges, and how we choose to contribute. A single meaningful interaction, a moment of kindness, honesty, or compassion, can shift someone's life in a profound way. Humans are wired for connection, and every act that strengthens connection adds meaning to both giver and receiver. This is why service, empathy, and presence are powerful tools for fulfillment. Another key principle is that meaning requires authenticity. You cannot build a purposeful life while pretending to be someone you're not. Many people chase socially approved goals or follow paths that impress others but leave them internally empty. The most meaningful goals often require courage because they reflect your true values, not society's expectations. Living authentically may involve difficult choices, but it brings emotional clarity and allows happiness to grow naturally instead of being forced. A meaningful life is not defined by intensity, but by direction. It does not require perfect conditions, only consistent action. When you stop searching for dramatic purpose and begin embracing daily meaning, you build a stable inner foundation that no external disappointment can destroy. Everyday choices become expressions of who you are becoming. And in these choices, fulfillment quietly grows, steady, strong, and deeply rooted. The ultimate message Viktor Frankl offered the world is that meaning is not something we passively receive. It is something we actively create. Life constantly presents us with questions, challenges, and opportunities, and meaning is found in the way we respond to them. When people stop chasing happiness and start pursuing purpose, they transform their inner world. They become stronger, more grounded, and more connected to their true selves. The search for happiness becomes irrelevant because fulfillment emerges naturally as a result of meaningful living. One of the most liberating insights from Frankl's philosophy is that meaning is available to everyone, regardless of circumstances. You do not need wealth, status, or perfect conditions to live a purposeful life. You simply need the willingness to take responsibility for the moment in front of you. Whether you are pursuing a dream, facing hardship, supporting others, or developing yourself, each moment carries the potential for meaning. This universality makes meaning more reliable than happiness, which depends heavily on external factors. A practical method for sustaining meaning is the creation of a personal mission. This mission acts as a guiding star, helping you stay focused even when life becomes confusing or challenging. To create a mission, ask yourself, what do I want my life to stand for? Whose life do I want to impact? What legacy do I want to leave? Your mission does not need to be grand. It only needs to be true. When your mission aligns with your values, every action becomes infused with purpose.
Another valuable exercise is what Frankl called responsibility projection. Imagine your future self watching your actions today. Would they respect the choices you're making? Would they feel proud of your discipline, compassion, and persistence? This perspective helps eliminate trivial distractions and strengthens your commitment to meaningful living. When you act in a way that earns the respect of your future self, you naturally build fulfillment. It is also important to recognize that meaning evolves through three arenas of life: creativity, relationships, and adversity. Through creativity, you bring something unique into the world. Through relationships, you give and receive love, support, and understanding. Through adversity, you discover inner strengths you never knew you had. Together, these arenas shape a complete and purposeful existence. Meaning is not limited to accomplishments. It is found in the journey of becoming a person of integrity, courage, and compassion. In closing, the pursuit of happiness often leads to emptiness because it focuses on momentary feelings. The pursuit of meaning, however, leads to fulfillment because it focuses on identity, responsibility, and contribution. Happiness fades, but meaning endures. When you choose purpose over pleasure, responsibility over ease, and authenticity over comfort, you create a life that feels whole. You become connected to something deeper than emotion. You become connected to your humanity. Through meaning, you discover the profound truth Frankl taught, that life remains deeply valuable as long as you are willing to respond to it with purpose, courage, and heart.